Hello and welcome to Pursuit of Perfect System. This is video update number 2 for really the starts of the review for the Chord Electronics DAVE Dac. And the DAVE Dac is a really interesting product. I've been really enjoying my time, listening to it and messing around with it, trying to get the best sound quality out of it. And it's actually been, in a way, a bit of a revelation actually to spend some time with. And really that is the purpose of this update video and why I've called the video kind of the DAVE changes everything almost, and I'll justify that title kind of as we go through the video. But just to give you a bit of an update to where we was, I've already made one kind of update video for it and a couple of song demonstrations, and in that video I was using the DAVE as a DAC in its preamp mode, but as a DAC feeding into the Luxman preamp power combination, which I'm sure you can see there. And some really fantastic traits about the sound and some really interesting parts about it, and some parts I really liked, but things weren't quite right and they wasn't quite good enough. And the reason I can tell that is because when I'm sitting listening, I'm spending more time thinking about things I want to try out and to try and improve the sound than I am thinking about what song or music I want to listen to. That is how I know whether I've got it nailed or whether there's still work to be done. So at the end of that video I said I was going to do more tweaking and testing, didn't I? And that's exactly what I did. I obviously took the DAVE out of the choral ensemble stand. I put it on top of our usual Seradisc isolators. I tried different types of cabling to sort of test it out to see if I could kind of get that next level of sound quality out of it. And it was beating me up, to be honest. I was putting a lot of effort in and I wasn't getting the rewards. And I was thinking maybe I need to kind of reevaluate my reference point. So I went all the way back to the QTIS, the Chord QTIS DAC. I set that back up exactly how I would normally use it and had a 20-minute, half-hour listening session. Straight away I could hear, I'm not wrong. Everything I'm thinking about the sound of the DAVE and the differences between the DAVE and the QTIS, and where actually the QTIS is giving me more in certain areas. It was a really interesting and learning curve. So, took the QTIS back out, put things back into the DAVE. But before I turned it on, I just left the system off for a while and I just went away from it. So, because sometimes you need to go away, and reevaluate. And I was sitting there thinking, kind of, what can I do? This is beating me up. What can I do? And what I did is, to be honest, what a lot of people have left messages. I actually put the DAVE into the system actually as DAC and preamplifier. So basically took the Luxman C700U preamplifier out of the chain and I'm now feeding direct into the M700U power amplifier. So that was one change. The second change was I actually changed the cables. So I'm using Tellurium Q black diamond cables now from the DAVE to the power amplifier. Previously I was using ultra black, so still really good quality cables. But obviously because the black diamond was linking the Luxman preamp power combination, and obviously all the differences from doing that is what I'm going to talk to you about in this video, and the impact it's had on me and how it's making me feel now towards a hi-fi system, towards how you can actually set up a hi-fi system. So obviously the video is talking about changes, and that is the first one, really using a DAC also as a preamplifier. It's not something I've ever done before, and to be honest, I'd written the idea off. I thought there's no way kind of the amplifier or the preamplifier built into a DAC is going to compete with a preamplifier, like a dedicated preamplifier, especially one of kind of this sort of quality, like this Luxman quality, and that was completely wrong. So that's the first thing that's changed, in my opinion, on that, because with using the Luxman preamplifier, there was loads of positive traits to the sound, but things were just a bit rough for me. Things weren't quite polished enough. It seemed like it was a bit fuzzy and noisy and stuff, the sound. Using the DAVE as the preamplifier, that's completely changed. That is now completely gone. The sound's kind of gone, like kind of counterbalance to that, complete opposite to that. It's now ultra clean and ultra clear, and really in those areas for clarity and how clean the sound is and for resolution, the DAVE is kind of leaps and bounds ahead of using the Luxman preamplifier. So that's a really interesting thing, and the sound presentation is very different coming from the DAVE as a preamplifier. So that would be the second thing that's really changed. The actual sound presentation, or how I perceive the sound presentation from the DAVE, has now completely changed. In my mind, from the time I've used it and the time I'd used it previously, it was this big, bold and powerful sound, which it kind of still is coming off the DAVE as a preamplifier, but the kind of power and scale to the sound now is kind of more mellowed out, and we've got a more refined and ultra precise now presentation, which doesn't really have that bass power. It doesn't really have that kind of, I suppose, guts to the sound. But I'm wondering if that guts and that power is actually just kind of a little bit artificial, and obviously with a little bit a little bit of addedness to the sound. I can't think of a better way to describe that. And when you have situations like that, it's kind of a real difficult one to make a decision on that. Should it be there or shouldn't it be there? And you know, this is where we get into the realms of I think preference and obviously kind of grey areas. Should it be like it or shouldn't be like it, or what do you like as an audiophile presentation wise? But either way, using the Dave as a preamplifier into this Luxman combo, and I remember I had a musical fidelity integrated amplifier before when I had the Dave, and it was exactly the same with that. So it's kind of using the Dave into another product. It sounds a certain way. That's possibly to do with how big the voltage output is from the Dave, and maybe that's something that I was getting wrong. Maybe I had the volume set too high. Obviously on the Dave, when we're using it as kind of a preamp into another preamp, maybe the volume needs to be set much lower. But either way, yeah, it's a different sound. It sounds very, very different. Now, because that sound is so different, the next change is really my opinions on how the Dave sounds by comparison to the Chord QTest. Now, when we use the Dave in kind of like a typical fashion, the same way you use the Chord QTest, i.e. with another preamplifier and power amplifier, I was able to get the QTest to sound very close actually to the Dave in the setup that we've got here. One of the comments I've made previously in another video are very valid, and I could very easily demonstrate that with some recordings. But I don't think that's necessarily really important. What happens now is using the Dave as a preamplifier as well, DAC and preamp. That's now completely changed, and which is probably why, you know, people were keen for me to spend some time with the Dave to actually kind of get a feel for that. And yeah, it's a completely different sound. It is you can compare and you can't compare really. The level of insight, the level of clarity, I think it's kind of the speed and the timing obviously from the Dave, and the precision and the way it kind of layers the sound, and the way just the kind of the insight into the music really is a cut above what I've had out of the QTest in kind of any combination that I've had so far. So again, the reason why it's been a bit of a revelation actually listening to music through the Dave, because it kind of opens your eyes really to, well, it kind of sets a new bar really, I suppose, in expectation for clarity and precision and resolution. I think it's sometimes difficult to use describing words for things that you hear, but again, yeah, the bar has certainly been raised, and it's one of those sorts of things. I mean, when I reviewed the Hugo 2, at the end of that review, I said that this level of clarity is going to be very difficult to come back from, and it's kind of that times 5 really with the Dave, and it'd be the same sort of thing. You spend quite a lot of time listening to the Dave, that level of clarity and precision just becomes the expectation bar that you're always going to live up to, and obviously if you come back from that, it's going to be one of those things you're definitely going to miss, obviously, as an audiophile. There's no way you can't miss that level of clarity. That leads me on to the next really interesting change that the Dave has brought around, and that is a change to setup. Now, pretty much everything that I've done as an audiophile to the system is to push, obviously, and improve the sound quality. But how do you improve the sound quality? To me, you can only really improve it in two ways. You can make it sound clearer and cleaner, and you can make it sound more organic or more natural. And sometimes things get cleaner and clearer and less organic and natural. And sometimes the other way around, they kind of get warmer and fuzzier and softer, which can make it sound more organic, but then you lose the clarity. Actually kind of chasing both and achieving the best of both is not easy. That is the goal. That is really the pursuit of the perfect system, a system that does both. Now, all my experiences up until this point have been chasing clarity. So trying to remove fuzziness, trying to remove, kind of fuzzy bits where music kind of blend together, trying to improve your soundstage, trying to get elements within the soundstage to be more precise and more clear and more separated from each other, but also sounding more organic and stuff at the same time. So that's what I've constantly been doing. Everything that I've done within the audio PC, our dedicated music server, all the settings that I've chosen within that are chasing those goals, trying to get more clarity out of the system. Dirac Live, for example, the target curve that I set in Dirac Live is to try and balance those two things, to try and give a full range sound, a full sound, but also clarity through the mid-range and the treble, because you're always trying to fight for more clarity until you have the DAVE in your system, and then things completely change because you're already at a starting point that's way ahead in terms of clarity and resolution. So what possibly can happen is, and this is what I'm thinking maybe the situation with the system now, is that because I'm always fighting for more detail, now we're already starting at a higher, or starting at a more advanced point in that regard. Do I need to now go and start changing the settings within the audio PC? Do I need to start going changing the Dirac Live target curve that I would normally use? And there's a few other things that I'm obviously now going to consider changing as well to try and get the next level of sound quality out. I've got a feeling that'll be the same for most audiophiles, because not many of them, not many systems, or not many setups, not many DACs, etc. are going to have this level of clarity and resolution. So I'm sure everything you've been doing as an audiophile is trying to push your clarity, trying to get your clarity up, because it's what we all want. That is what better sound is. Yet maybe some of it's too much, and maybe we need to rein some of it back to get a balance. I think the next change is actually a really big one, because when you consider the DAVE as a product at about £8,500 at the time of making this video, it's a high priced item, and there are DACs on the market for £1,000, the Chord OUTEST at £1,200, the Hugo 2 at £1,800, and then you've got the DAVE at £8,500. Obviously, it's a huge amount more money. However, when you look at the value proposition of the DAVE, if you factor in the fact that it is a really high quality preamplifier as well, then the value proposition changes in how you perceive it and how you can integrate it into the system. Now, I can't speak categorically about whether DAVE's better than this or that product as being a preamplifier, but in this system, in this instance, using it as a preamplifier, by compare to the Luxman C700U preamplifier, the sound's, as I say, much cleaner and clearer and more precise using the DAVE as the preamplifier. So in this instance, it's as good or better than a preamplifier post-Brexit costing £6,500. But even if we took the pre-Brexit price of about £5,000, we're then only really paying, so at £8,500 total cost for the DAVE, minus £5,000 for the preamplifier, we're then only paying £3,500 for arguably the best DAC that you can buy on the market, and a headphone amplifier. So maybe £500 for the headphone amplifier. If someone said to you, you can buy the best DAC on the market for £3,000, given the prices of products across the whole hi-fi industry, think how many of them they would sell. If it's the best DAC in the world, arguably, because there's never a consensus on anything, for £3,000, think how many people would buy that. There'd be people queuing up to buy that. So when you look at the value proposition for what you actually get, and the fact you can use the DAVE as a preamplifier, and a really high quality one, it completely changes that total cost value proposition. And that has changed in my mind, and hopefully that will help change maybe other people's minds who wouldn't have thought about using it as a preamplifier. So that's been a huge change for me. And that pushes me on to another change, and this is more of a kind of a physical change sort of situation. Now, I've often said that good quality products can be the focal point of a system, i.e. you can think, right, I'm going to buy the DAVE Dac and use it as a preamplifier. I'm then going to build a system around it. And this is where things come into play. People talk about system synergies and stuff. I've never really been a big believer in system synergies, although I'm sure that it's real and it exists. But you can think to yourself, right, I'm going to buy the DAVE Dac and use it as a DAC and preamplifier. I'm then going to go out and choose the right speakers and the right amplification and cables and other bits and pieces to get the sound balance that I really like, as opposed to kind of do it the other way around, thinking, right, I've already got my system set up, I'm now going to try and incorporate the DAVE into that system, which obviously can work both ways, but it is one of those sorts of products, because it works to the level that it does, because it's going to give you that level of clarity, which you might, say, which is going to be difficult to come back from. It could well be the focal point of the system where you could say, right, I'm going to buy this product first, and I'm then going to build around it to A, get the best out of it that I can, and B, to get the right sound balance and tone, and just how you like music to be presented, built around this, rather than kind of working up to it as a product, which is what a lot of people do, don't they? We start with maybe a lower product in the range and we build up, or we move across, and we build up to these things. So to me, that is potentially a change in the way of thinking, or So what a change in a sense, right? I'm now going to change the system totally to work around this as a central product. Talking about using the DAVE as a preamplifier, that has changed my opinion on what I believe is the sweet spot in the Chord Electronics DAC range. And for me, up until this point, I would have said the cutest is by miles the best value proposition and sweet spot in the Chord DAC range, because it gives you a fantastic performance for the lowest cost. And that could well be right, but it could also well be wrong. And the reason it could well be wrong is because I hadn't even considered the fact or the thought process of using the DAC as a preamplifier as well. And if you factor that in, then probably the best product in the range is going to be the Hugo 2 TT, because that has got a more advanced chipset. It's got over 100,000 tap length filters. I think about double of what the cutest has got. It's powered off the grid via batteries, and it's got the super capacitors built into it. I think more super capacitors built into the original Hugo TT, which had a big scale sound, which again is really nice and listen to. It's got that kind of powerful, solid sound. I mean, I think the Dave's got 160,000 tap length filters, and we've got about, I don't know, 40 or 49 or 50,000 with the cutest. So it's kind of half again. So when you think about it, the Dave kind of majors on resolution. You know, I can't say it's borderline too much detail and resolution, but I'm sure you could scale that down a little bit, get powered off the grid. You've got balanced connections with the Hugo 2 TT, and you can use it as a preamplifier, and you can use it as a headphone amplifier. And I think the retail price is about £4,500, which obviously is about half of what the Dave's going to cost you. And you can bolt on the Hugo M scaler, which will look really lovely as kind of a little stack and stuff. So yeah, that's changed my opinion. That actually looks now to be at the sweet spot in the Chord Electronics DAC range. And I wouldn't have thought that up until using this. I would have thought it was definitely the cutest. I started the video by saying, you know, the Dave has changed everything almost. And there's been a few things that definitely haven't changed, my opinion, at the moment. The first is the sound quality that I'm getting with the Dave in the system. I am full of admiration for. I think what Chord Electronics have done, I think what Rob Watts has done with this product, and kind of the benchmark they've set out and the stall that they've set out for the company as a whole, and I suppose the industry as a whole, to live up to, I've got absolute admiration for. But as I said in the last video, as it stands, I'm not in love with the sound of the system at the moment with the Dave in it, and I just don't feel I've got to that sweet spot yet where, again, like I mentioned, I'm not thinking about, right, how can I improve the sound? I'm thinking about what songs can I go and listen to. I haven't got there yet. It's not me saying that I won't get there. Just as it stands, I haven't quite got there yet. And really that is me keeping that mindset of, as it stands, I still think linear power supplies sound better than switching power supplies from a sound quality point of view. And I don't necessarily mean how they make things sound in terms of transparency necessarily, or clean edges of transit notes and stuff, but just from a general listening experience, I still feel linear power supplies sound better. But if there's going to be any product that's going to change my opinion on that, i.e. that switching power supplies can sound as good or better, it should well be the Dave. To come the end of the review process, maybe I'll change my opinion, but as it stands now, that's definitely still the same. And I think that really kind of leads on to the last thing. And again, I've got much better sound quality out of the system now using the Dave as a preamplifier and the DAC. However, I'm still getting a sound that feels quite narrow by comparison to what I'm used to. It still very much feels speaker width as opposed to beyond the room width. And I'm sure I'll get there. I'm sure I'll crack that. But as it stands, that to me is still a bit that's missing from the presentation that I'm trying to get to. So, you know, things are not perfect in the system at the moment, but I am, you know, full of admiration for the Dave. When you use it as a DAC and a preamplifier, you can hear, as I say, the level of clarity and resolution, the chipset in there, and all the work that Rob Watts has done on the filters and stuff. You can hear all that. Long video. There's so much to chat about with this. I could keep going and going and going. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope it's been interesting. I hope you like the different camera angle. I've done that because the normal camera angle, I want to stand in the middle of the shot. If I do that, you can't see the product. So I hope you like the new camera angle. I hope that works. And yeah, don't forget to visit the website. Always new stuff going on. There's been a lot of interesting news articles going on there recently and other work. So visit the website. Come back for the next updates. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up. I'll see you soon. Take care.